Hey everyone, I'm Amber and I did chapter 2 of Fluker, and I'll be describing the ways of doing ethics, and it can be first on page 41. So, before determining the ways in which we can do ethics, we must first define it in the sense of practicing instead of following the rules of ethics. Fluker explains ethics to be more so concerned with the meaning of moral terms, the condition in which moral decision making takes place, and the justification of principles brought to bear in resolving conflicts of value and of moral rules in a public space. I think that it's crucial to realize that ethics isn't something that you all of a sudden understand and follow. Ethicality is something that must be constantly practiced. Since I'm going into nursing, I applied it to the field of nursing. So, in one of my nursing classes, I learned the many rules and procedures of a vast array of treatment methods and cares, but this does not make me any better at actually completing the cares. It takes time and practice in clinicals in order to feel comfortable with doing it and doing it correctly. This is similar to ethics. We may be able to point out an unethical issue, but without practice, we will not have the skills or reasoning to make those ethical decisions. But Fluker makes it clear that this is okay. We must first find a way we feel comfortable in practicing in order to determine what's right and what's wrong within our society. So, in the book, there are four main ways of doing ethics that are described in depth on pages 42 to 55. So, there's the way of the rationalist, which is a rule based approach. There's the way of the realist and the retooler, which uses the reality based and the ends based ethics approach, and the ways of the relationist, which is the relations based approach, and the ways of the storyteller, which uses the narrative based ethics approach. So, the first way of doing ethics is through the way of the rationalist using rule based ethics. This particular model relies heavily on facts. Instead of using opinions and experiences to shade our views on morality, we have to be rational with our decision making. The strengths of this particular model are the ample amount of rules and order that has the potential to provide. It also allows us to discover when we are out of line or acting in an unethical manner. The idea within the rationality model is to try to come up with the different rules regarding morality and that are mostly mutual in society. The book explains that the rationalist view is the belief that reason is the supreme source for ordering and giving coherence to the moral life. The model tends to focus on the question, what is my duty? The main weakness with this particular model is that there becomes an issue when determining specific rules that apply to everyone. Not everyone is going to mutually agree upon a set of moral rules in order to avoid unethical decisions and situations. The second way of doing ethics is a combined approach of realist and retooler. The entire perspective is associated with goals with the end in mind or a particular vision for how the leader will essentially behave. To have a generalized idea of the difference of realist and retooler, I will explain both in order to really grasp the importance. Firstly, a practical realist focuses specifically upon the end product or particular outcomes. A realist leader tends to be very much utilitarian because it directly relates to efficiency and the ability to measure outcomes. As we should all remember from the Johnson text, utilitarianism is all about the options that allow us to promote the greatest good for the greatest amount of people. In this sense, we look at technical reasoning to determine the most successful outcome, especially in regards to ethical leadership. On the flip side, retoolers are pragmatic leaders who promote restructuring leadership and understanding the issues that may arise. As said in Fluker, the approach of the retooler is helpful for our purposes in that it provides leaders with methodology for remembering, retelling, and reliving their personal life stories in the context of larger cultural narratives. Although we must grow from mistakes through this approach, it's important to keep questioning our limits in order to work towards complete fulfillment of our goals. The third way of doing ethics is described as the way of the relationist. It suggests that all life and experiences are somehow related and we must understand how we are connected. It's also interrelated to the quest for the good in life in order to promote community. The book states that the basic thesis of the relationist leader is that human beings are related to mutuality and interdependency, as is all existence. Since we are part of a large existence, we must always address being a part of that existence through our web. Instead of focusing on the specific agreements and norms of society like we did in utilitarian or rationalist approaches, we have to understand that these agreements are based on relationships that have values of reconciliation, hope, empathy, and the importance of community. This approach revolves around the ultimate pursuit of practices to construct communities that are rooted in specific traditions. Personally, I favor with this approach the most because I feel that a sense of community is very important in our world. This connects to the introductory chapter that we read from Fluker because he discusses how a sense of community is something that should be valued more in our violent world in order to promote ethicality. The last way of doing ethics is the way of the storyteller, which uses stories and narratives to describe ethics. In this particular model, traditions and memories are deeply valued because these are what shape our ethicality. Instead of rules or rationality, we base things off of our experiences in order to provide meaning to ethical life and practice. It's believed that humans and history are directly related to promote truth. Fluker says that the storyteller emphasizes the place of traditions and authenticate and ground relatedness in the context of larger historical narratives or stories. Memories, stories, and myths historically shape our reasonings and moral beliefs, thus having a large effect on our ethical behavior. The downfall of this model is remembering these memories in order to have them actually present truth. I don't believe that this approach is used very much, especially in the United States. The only reason I say this is because in the United States we value cold, hard facts rather than personal beliefs and opinions generally. So to kind of sum everything up, it's important to do ethics through practice in order to really get a grip on moral judgments and ethical behaviors. If we know how to do ethics, we then know how to justify principles and apply certain rules of morality compiled. So I'll leave you with a quote from Fluker that describes the importance of all of this. This understanding of ethics and morality is important because one of the most difficult questions for leaders is how one goes about making an ethical decision, whether personal or public, at the intersection of life worlds and system worlds. And these are my references, so thank you guys.